What's up, guys? Hope you're having a good day. We've got some important stuff to talk about in today's video. Obviously, crypto's popping off. Bitcoin is back at $30,000, and it's been a while since I did a little crypto update, but you know, whenever anything notable happens in the crypto market, I like to talk about in these videos, give you guys a little bit of an update. So we'll be getting into that in just a little bit, so stick around. I recommend you listen in, even if crypto's not your thing. It may benefit you, you may find it interesting, you might learn something. But obviously the real reason why most of you are here is for breakdown videos, and we're going to be going into a lot of depth from a betting perspective on all of the main card fights taking place this weekend at UFC Fight Night Topuria versus Emmett. We've got 5 fantastic matchups on the main card to dig into, and as ever, if you really like these breakdown videos, if you like the analysis, you get a lot of value out of them. If they save you time from having to do the fight research yourself, you can use these videos as like a strategy guide to hopefully help you make better betting decisions, maybe even earn some extra cash. So over on my website, you'll find breakdown videos for every single fight on every single UFC card, including the prelims, including all my bets as well. You'll get access to a private Discord server, which is absolutely popping off. I absolutely love it. Tons of people online at the moment. Pretty cool there. And yeah, also on top of that, live betting's obviously my bread and butter. It's my speciality. We perform really well on live betting over the long term, so if you'd like to give live betting a try, I think you would like it a lot. You can see our profitability chart here, pretty much non-stop consistent profits over the last 8 years, barely ever had a losing quarter. So if you like to watch every UFC event live and live betting interests you, may want to give my live betting service a try. Think you'd like it a lot. If you don't, if you hate it, if you think it's the biggest waste of money ever, no problem, man. All you gotta do is DM me, get you a refund, no problem. So I think with everything that's going on in the world at the moment, there's a lot of uncertainty, right? Inflation, interest rates, you know, stock markets pumping, people talking about AI stocks, you know, people now, you know, talking about crypto. 1 minute, you know, it's dumping and, you know, it's the death of crypto with the SEC suing Binance and Coinbase. The next minute, you know, crypto is going to go back to 100k because, well, not back to 100k, but it's going to fly the 100k because now institutions are coming back in, BlackRock applying to set up an ETF. It's all very confusing times, right? And as many of you know, if you've been watching my YouTube videos for a really long time, I've been deep in crypto since like 2016, 2017. And in the past few videos, we've talked about the upcoming halvening cycle, which is scheduled to take place early 2024. And we know that that usually leads to a very, very big, you know, bull market, you know, leading into the halvening. And then, you know, about 12 months, 18 months after the halvening. So now's a really good time to get involved in crypto and learn. So I think it is a good time for another crypto update, just to kind of show you guys where the market is, you know, what's happening at the moment. You know, this is not financial advice, not a financial advisor. I'm literally just a pleb on the internet. But this will be my 3rd halvening cycle. And what I've noticed in the previous 2 halvening cycles, the one back in 2017/2018, the one back in 2020/2021, is that they were both virtually identical. They both played out pretty much the same way. There were a lot of similarities in the way the prices of everything moved during those 2 cycles. And now as we approach another one, you know, leading into the halvening coming up in early 2024, obviously, you know, if the previous 2 were very similar in how they played out, that gives us a lot of insight into what's going to happen in this upcoming halvening cycle. So I hope I can use my experience to share with you guys a little bit of what to expect. And this point is for people that are not in a position to capitalize on this halvening cycle right now, because, you know, I know how tough life is right now. You know, there's 9% inflation in the UK at the moment. You know, it's the cost of living's getting crazy, right? People are getting squeezed with higher taxes, higher cost of living. It's just absolutely brutal out there. So very few people watching this video are going to have the funds available to actually capitalize on this halvening cycle, because ultimately these days it's impossible for people to save, right? You know, by the time you get paid and you pay your rent, you pay your mortgage, If you pay all your bills, you pay for food, there's nothing left. In these times where the governments have destroyed economies through money printing, cost of living so high, there's just no disposable income left. There's no money to save. You know, people are too busy just trying to stay alive and feed themselves to be worrying about gambling on magical internet money. So I understand how difficult it is. And, you know, back in like 2016, I was in that position before. I couldn't capitalize on all this stuff. I was in a much different stage of my life than I am now. But for people that are not in a position to capitalize on this halvening cycle, I would still say stay in the game. Stay in the game, man. Stay around. Learn. Just observe everything that's going on. Even if you don't have money to participate, know that these halvening cycles come up every few years. So once we get through this halvening cycle, the halvening date of the next one's early 2024. We've got the next one coming up in 2028. So if you haven't got the funds, if you're not in a position to capitalize now because finances are tough, don't worry about it, man. Just observe everything that happens, right? Become an expert now. Learn the skills, learn the market. You know, observe everything. Observe how this halvening cycle works. And then you've got 4 years to build and prepare for the next one in 2028. So if you're not in a position to capitalize on this one, don't fucking worry about it, man. Times are tough. They're absolutely brutal. But previous halvening cycles have been an opportunity to make life-changing gains. And this ain't going to be the last one. So if you can capitalize on this next one, let's do it. You know, hopefully we can do big things. And if you can't, if you're not in a position to, don't worry about it, man. Just learn, build, and prepare for the next one. So, obviously, we know that leading into a halvening cycle, you're likely to see, you know, a run up in price of crypto into the halvening cycle. And once the halvening cycle is done, there for about 12 months, 18 months after, you get that nice bull market. And that's why you see, you know, pretty much here, where price slowly grinds up as you lead into a halvening, and then boom, huge bull market. And obviously it happened back in 2017 as well. Price grinds up, and then boom, parabolic bull market. So obviously, if you're in our Discord community, if you listen to my live betting tips every weekend on the audio stream, if you watch all my breakdown videos, you'll know that in recent months, dating back to January, I have literally been saying every day, pay attention, pay attention, pay attention, pay attention, pay attention. Because what happens is, in crypto, you get these long periods of consolidation where price just goes sideways. You see it happen. We just take the indicators off. You see it here, right? Price just goes sideways, then boom. You see it back here, right? Price slowly grinds up, and then boom, you get the huge parabolic run. Crypto in the past has had these huge runs leading into halvenings. So if we know the next halvening is coming up in early 2024, this right now is the time where you should be paying attention to everything that's happening. You should be keeping a close eye on price action, staying up to date with where the market is, learning about different projects, and starting to build positions so that when we get closer to the halvening, as we lead into the halvening now, you're not in a reactive state. You're already prepared, and you're in a strong position to hopefully benefit from these kind of parabolic runs that we've seen going into previous halvenings before. The mistake that a lot of people make is that they're very reactive. They wait until prices pumped a few 100% or a few 1000%, and then they start to buy in, and then they obviously run into huge dumps such as this. And that's why most people get wrecked in crypto. They wait too late. The people that make it in crypto, the people that make big money, are the ones that move in the shadows during the quiet times when everyone is bored and crypto isn't doing anything. The ones that build positions down here, the ones that build positions down here, those are the ones that benefit from the huge parabolic runs. So look, no one knows what the future holds. I'm not a financial advisor. This is not financial advice. However, what we do know is the next halvening date is 10 months from now. We know previous halvenings have led to huge bull runs, and what we also know is that price action on Bitcoin is changing. It's doing different things. This is the weekly time frame on crypto, and we're in a very clear uptrend. We haven't got the 200 weekly moving average, on this chart, but price has just basically bounced very, very strongly off the 200 weekly moving average. You can see, the 8, the 13, the 21 EMA coming back up above the 55. And what you can also see, I'm not going to go into the specifics of what this indicator actually means, but what we know is after long periods of contraction, periods of low volatility, where price just kind of goes sideways and doesn't do very much for a decent period of time, like we've got here, what you'll see is sudden expansion, sudden increase in volatility, sudden increase in volume, and a huge explosion in price. You can kind of see it if we go back a little bit, right? You have this sideways period here, and then huge explosion in price as it dumps. Then you have another contraction period here where price just kind of bounces around sideways, and huge explosion in price again there, huge explosion in price there, huge dump, again sideways, explosion in price. And this is a cycle that repeats over and over and over again. You see it here, right? Sideways, explosion in price, sideways. Now, are we seeing another explosion in price? Well, we don't know. We don't know for sure. But what we do know is that low volatility is a sign that volatility is inevitably going to come. And when volatility comes, price expands a lot. So again, I'm not going to explain to you the specifics of how volatility works, but this indicator here called a BBWP basically measures volatility in terms of it measures how much price is moving. And when price isn't moving very much, the indicator goes down to show that volatility has been at extremely low or extremely high levels for a decent period of time. And as a result, that's when you should start to expect volatility to come in, increase, and therefore it makes it more likely price expands. So if we look at the BBWP indicator here, notice how you get two blue bars and the line, the volatility line, very, very low, almost down at 0%. Now, as you can see, in the last, we're here in, June 2023, and if we go back and look at the volatility indicator, price has not ever been, well, not ever, but price hasn't been this low before. If you see here, right, we basically touch 0% for volatility. And if we scroll back, I mean, not even here did it get as low as it has been now. There is about 1.85%. It's not at zero. If we scroll back, the last time that we got down as low as 0% on the volatility indicator was all the way back in November 2018. And if you look at what happened, as you basically hit 0%, we got this big move down, right? You see, doesn't look like much on the chart because you're just coming off this huge parabolic run. If we actually measure it, that was about a 50% drop in literally a month, right? So 50% move in a month, pretty substantial. If we go further back to this one here, this one's far more interesting. So this one from back in October 2016 also hits close to 0%, maybe even hits 0%. But this one is interesting to me because this one led into a halvening cycle. So when BBWP hit 0% here on low volatility, we then saw this huge bull run leading into 2017. And then obviously you had, the massive bear market that came, in 2018. But this is interesting to me because if we look at the timing of this, so when we zoom out and look at, the entire history of Bitcoin dating back to January 2012, we can see that there's only 3 times in Bitcoin's entire history where volatility got this low. And on the most recent example, back in November 2018, we got a 50% dump in the space of a month. But the time before that, we got an absolutely giant move. Let's measure it. So it would have been from about October 2016 and it would have gone, Bitcoin grew 3,000%, right? So when volatility was at its lowest back in 2016, same level we're at now, Bitcoin ran 3,000%. The most recent example, it dipped by 50%. So what does that tell us? Well, it tells us that with volatility being this low, we can expect a pretty big move pretty soon, right? Because we've got big moves on the two previous examples in Bitcoin's history where volatility has got this low. But then we have to think about which direction is that big move likely to come, right? Because we're basically one and one. We've had one big move where it went up 3,000%, one big move down where it went down 50%. So what is more likely to happen here, up or down? Well, for me, you've got to consider the timeline. If we know that the next halving date is in April 2024 or May 2024, it's early 2024, that's about 9-10 months from now. So if you were to dump Bitcoin all the way back to, say, this 16,000 support level here, it would take the bulls a long time to work its way back up to the 30k price point that it's at now. And if you think about it, if we've only gone 9 to 10 months before the next halving date, is there enough time for the market to absolutely tank now and then grind its way back up? Because you have to think about it, right? Where we were at these lows previously, you know, when we were back at 16k at this level, you know, back, you know, towards the end of last year, volatility, you know, was pretty low back then. Volume also pretty low. You have to wonder, if you were to dump price back down to that level, like, who's selling now that hasn't already sold? Like, if you didn't shake people out here and get them to sell, you know, when crypto was down, you know, 75%, or Bitcoin was down 75%, like, is it worth market makers sending price back down to these levels when we've got a halving in 9-10 months time? Like, who are you shaking out? Who is there left to shake out? Who is left to sell? Volume's at an all-time low. Volatility is at an all-time low. You know, NFTs are down like 90-95%. Altcoins, you know, at this time were down like 90-95%. Bitcoin's down 75%. Is there another huge drop in Bitcoin? For me, doesn't feel that likely personally. So if we're thinking about this like we're placing a bet, like, you know, like we're capping an MMA fight, we think about probabilities. When volatility has got this low in the past, we're 1 and 1. We had a 50% drop, a 3,000% gain on Bitcoin. If you start to add everything up, we're 9 to 10 months from the halving. We know leading into a halving, price tends to grind up and you get the huge parabolic explosion. We're in a weekly uptrend, clear weekly uptrend. You got the low, higher low, low, higher high, higher low, higher high, higher low. And to me, it just looks like we're printing a new higher high here, probably grinding up to that 35,000 level. So look, no one knows what the future holds, but the timing to me of when BBWP, the indicator, the volatility indicator, has got very, very low. It's just very interesting to me how, obviously, back in, you know, 2016, this was the run into a halving, right? So you see price start to go parabolic, you know, about a year. If you look at here, right, this is 10th of October when we start to hit the 0% volatility. Price really starts to ramp up there, where you just start to go crazy about a year later. But there's the volatility right here, and price slowly grinds up, right? Price slowly grinds up, then you get that explosion. So price started to grind up about a year before the parabolic explosion. Doesn't that look a whole lot like what we've got going on here? where price is starting to grind up 9 to 10 months before the halvening date. So this is just interesting to me because for me, if we're considering probabilities, it's far more likely that the volatility indicator is suggesting a move up here than a move down. Because if we drop 50% and come back to this 16k range, and we're only 9-10 months before the halvening, price action's got to do a lot then to grind this way all the way back up to 30k. I mean, if you think about it, it took us from December to April to go from 16k to 30k. If you send price back down to 16k now, it ain't going to just go straight down. It's going to take a while. So it might take, you know, a month or two to grind down to that 16k level. Then there's only 6 months before the halving. Then you've got to send price from 16k back to 30 to continue this march up. I mean, that could take another, well, it took 4 months from here to here. So then there would only be 2 months before the halving. And to me, that just, the timeline doesn't really add up. I think it's far more likely that the volatility indicator produces something like we got back in 2017, as opposed to what we had, you know, on the most recent flash of volatility being that low in 2018, where we had that 50% drop. So look, no one's got a crystal ball. I don't know what the future holds, but I think now is a really good time to pay attention to everything that's happening. Become an expert. Learn, dedicate some time to figuring this stuff out and learning it, finding out what's going on. And like I say, I've been through 2 halvening cycles before. They both played out virtually identically, and so hopefully I'll be able to keep you guys up to date on developments, kind of keep you guys in the loop as to what's happening. Obviously I'm just a pleb on the internet, not a financial advisor, but I've made so many mistakes over the last, you know, 6 or 7 years. Had to learn a lot of hard lessons. Just like everyone else, I've been scammed. I've been dumped on. You know, I've held on to stuff for way too long after being up huge and giving back pretty much all my profits. You know, I've been liquidated trading, you know, countless times, right? So I've been through it all. I've got my stripes. Over the last 6 or 7 years, I have learned a lot, and hopefully I'll be able to pass on some of that knowledge to you guys and help guide you through this. So I'll do these breakdown videos, not breakdown videos, but I'll do these update videos just to keep you guys in the loop, just remind you guys to just pay attention, during times where something notable changes. If you're really interested in this stuff, obviously if you're a member of my community, we are literally posting in the Discord, in the crypto channel, all day, every day. You just look here, we're crazy active, posting all the time, charts, all sorts of stuff. Obviously, you know, we're doing well this year. We bought into crypto back in January, made hundreds of % gains on the way up. Then, you know, just before, you know, all the SEC, Binance, Coinbase lawsuit shit started to pop off, we got out the market about a week before, and we were able to short those big dumps. So we made a few 100% gains on that as well. And obviously we started buying back into the market last week when things started to flip bullish. And yeah, man, we've obviously made hundreds of % gains in the last few days as well. So look, if you're interested and you're a member of my community, please check out the crypto channel, because we are dropping big knowledge in there that I think will help a lot of people. Because I just remember what it was like for me back in 2016, and I wouldn't have a clue what was going on. I would be completely in the dark, completely clueless, and I would basically have to figure things out from watching YouTube videos, what people were saying on Twitter, and it was a nightmare. I found I was always chasing the market, right? Something would pump and I would buy in, and then I would lose because it would inevitably come back down. I was just always chasing my tail, always chasing the market, and then over a long period of time figured out how the game works. And you know, that doesn't happen anymore. And like I say, no one knows what the future holds, but this is not my first rodeo, and what I'm really hoping for now as we go into this next halving cycle is that as many of us as possible can do well and capitalize on it. And I'd also really like your help as well, because I can like chart things and keep an eye on the overall market, but at the end of the day, I'm only one pair of eyes, and you guys know me, I'm really busy. Fight research is super time consuming. I live bet football every day of the week, so I can't be on crypto all the time. I do spend a lot of time on it these days, but I can't be all over it all the time. So you guys can really help me out, being part of the community, sliding into that Discord channel, and just giving me a heads up. You know what I mean? If you see any cool NFTs flying around on Twitter which you think could be a good opportunity, or any new altcoins, you can help us all out, right? Just by sharing that. When we work together as a collective, we're all going to be so much stronger together, right? Sharing different projects, different opportunities. We know what it's like. If you haven't been through like a crazy parabolic bull market before, you might not appreciate what it's like, but things get crazy. Like literally things are just pumping, every single day, everything's going up. Over the course of a few weeks, things will be going up hundreds of percent, thousands of percent. There's so much money to be made. But when you are in the heat of the moment, when everything's pumping, everything's going crazy, everyone's making loads of money, and Twitter's popping off, and everything's parabolic, and everyone's getting euphoric, and everyone thinks they're going to be millionaires, it's really difficult to think straight, because everything's so crazy. You're in a very reactive state where you're chasing different projects, different pumps. What's going to pump next? What should I buy? Should I buy? Should I sell? Is it too late to buy? It's absolutely crazy. So by working together as a team, hopefully we can keep a close eye on the crypto market as a whole. Identify good projects very early before they pump. Keep an eye on interesting new NFT projects, and hopefully, fingers crossed, when it's all said and done, in 2-3 years from now, we all would have hopefully improved our lives a decent amount. So I hope you found that useful. So let's now break down some UFC fights, because that is why you're all here. And let's kick things off by talking about the very first fight that I want to break down this week, which is going to be the main event between Josh Emmett and Ilia Topuria. Fantastic main event. I love this main event. A really interesting fight for us to dig into. And from a betting point of view, some difficult decisions to be made on a fight like this. So if we start off by taking a look at the odds, we can see that Topuria is the favourite at average odds of about 1.30, which is going to be minus 333 for an implied probability of 77%. If we take a look at the odds on Emmett, he's around an average of 3.60, which is going to be plus 260 for an implied probability of 28%. So Emmett is 38 years old, 5'6" with a 70-inch reach, and Topuria is 26 years old, 5'7" with a 69-inch reach. So both guys virtually the same size, but we can see there's a big difference in age. Topuria is 12 years younger than Josh Emmett, and we know that the younger fighter wins around 70% of the time when there's a 12-year age gap in a fight, 7-0. So Emmett is fighting a very strong trend here, and what's interesting about Topuria's odds, so if we put them back in, we can see that that gives him an implied probability of 77%, which is in that ballpark for where that age statistic suggests he should be. Now, last week in the breakdown video for Jared Cannonier versus Marvin Vettori, I talked in depth about how I felt it was a great stylistic matchup for Jared Cannonier, and how I felt that he would cause Vettori big problems, in that fight, so long as Father Time didn't hit him too hard. But I also said that I wasn't betting Cannonier, because even though I felt Cannonier was a really, really bad stylistic matchup for Vettori and Cannonier would likely win, when I've gone back over my results from the last year, or sorry, when I've gone back and looked at my results over the last 2 years, I've found that betting on fighters like Jared Cannonier was costing me money over the long term. So when I basically did, I'll just cover this briefly because we went into it in a lot more depth in last week's video for the Cannonier versus Vettori fight. I'll just briefly go over it here for anyone that didn't watch last week's video. So back in 2021, where we had all those really low quality COVID cards, you can see that my results on pre-fight betting were just floating around break even. We had this really nice uptrend where we were doing great, and then we had those COVID cards where we had loads of short notice call-ups, fight cancellations, and I just couldn't break out of break even. I was having nice runs, then giving it all back, and then nice runs, and then giving it all back. I just couldn't get out of this break even cycle. So in these times back in 2021, I was like, well, you know, the reason why I'm struggling is because we're getting loads of poor quality matchups, you know, loads of guys coming on short notice, loads of fight cancellations, loads of really bad quality cards, and it's just a really bad environment for betting. But then after a while, as the months tick by, and I keep finding that, you know, I'm having these nice runs and then giving it all back, nice runs, giving it all back, I start to think, what the fuck's going on here? You know, is my approach to betting MMA from a pre-fight betting point of view correct at the moment? Obviously, live betting is an absolute cash cow for us. It's my bread and butter. It is what pays the bills, right? We do very well on live betting, nothing wrong with that. But pre-fight betting, very different story, floating around break even for like a year. So when we had this pretty nasty dip last summer, I was like, enough is enough, right? I need to figure out what's going wrong here. So what I did was go back through all my results over the previous year when we were floating around break even, and I wanted to see if I could identify trends between bets that or types of bets that I was consistently winning at and types of bets that I was consistently losing at. And what I found is that there were some bets, some types of bets that I was performing extremely well on. For example, I have a huge edge on women's MMA. So my win rate on women's MMA is over 70%. Now, someone in the comments recently said a win rate of 70% doesn't mean anything if you're placing bets at average odds of, like, you know, the carrying average odds are like 1.2 or 1.25, right? Minus 400, minus 500, which is a fair point, but it's a really dumb thing to say to someone like me, because obviously I kind of know that, so I don't know why they would bring that up. But if you look at the average odds for my pre-fight bets, you can see that most of my bets, a big majority of my bets, are either at underdog odds or in the even money odds range. So when we hit a win rate of, you know, over 70% on a certain type of bet, and most of my bets are in the even money odds range or underdog odds. You know, look, even money, underdog, underdog, even money, underdog, even money, right? When most of my bets are in that even money or underdog odds range, you can see that hitting a 70% win rate on a certain type of bet is really good. And as a result, if you know you have a huge edge on a certain type of bet, you want to double down and place more of those kind of bets, right? And then I would, you know, in my analysis of past results over this period, I identified certain types of bets where my win rate was terrible. It was like 40 to 50%. So the reason why I was breaking even for so long is that I had these certain types of bets that I was absolutely crushing on, had a crazy high win rate. So I'd make money on those, but then I had these other kind of bets that I was placing that I was consistently losing on. So I'd make money on this type of bet, and I would lose money on this type of bet. And so as a result, I was just going through this cycle of just breaking even. So I'd make money here, and I'd give it back here. And so what I did around about this time last year was double down on the kind of bets that I know from studying my past results I have a big edge on, and eliminating the kind of bets which I know I'm finding difficult to make money on, right? And you can see because of that, results have taken, you know, a massive turn. for the positive. And I don't place many pre-fight bets. Like I say, my bread and butter is betting on football, live betting the UFC. Those are my specialities, right? It's like Tom Brady isn't going to be a particularly good wide receiver. You know, Messi isn't going to make a particularly good centre back. Everyone's got different strengths. I am profitable betting pre-fight, but I know I can get better. Live betting UFC, live betting football, my speciality. But as you can see, if you just kind of cut out, you know, if we just take this little section here, right? Obviously, the gains are not huge. It's not like we're making hundreds of units of profit. It's not like we're making tons and tons of units of profit. However, if we just take this profitability chart and we just cut out from the time I made the change a year ago, right? You can see a very nice steady uptrend. Nice, steady, consistent uptrend. No longer do we have these big booms and then we give it all back, and these big booms and then we give it all back. We're slowly grinding out these profits. And so, for me, my new approach to pre-fight betting is definitely working. It doesn't look that impressive on the chart at the moment, but in time it'll come. As we continue to grind profits up, you know, slowly, you know, this chart will take care of itself and we'll start to get these nice uptrends like we've had in the past. So why am I saying this? Why am I making a point of this now? It's important for us to talk about this because I'm at that stage in my betting career where I only care about money. To be perfectly honest with you, I don't get that much enjoyment from watching the UFC anymore, right? I research, watch and bet the UFC purely to make money. So I'm at that stage in my career at the moment where I know there's big gains to be made in crypto, making very, very big gains in crypto at the moment. You know, since the beginning of the year, we've made hundreds and hundreds of % gains in crypto. Football betting is also going pretty well, right? It hasn't been a home run yet, but we're in the off season at the moment. It's been a tricky year with the World Cup. Football is going to be absolutely fine next season. We're going to do very well on football. We're also in a position where we make profit almost every week on UFC live betting, okay? So if we're making hundreds of % gains on crypto and we're making a profit almost every month in UFC live betting, and we know that football betting is also going to be a big cash cow for us, we have to start considering what the role of pre-fight betting is. Like, do we need to mix it up in pre-fight betting, right? Do we need to go hunting every little bit of value, every little tiny little bit of value wherever it is, and go through these periods of variance and these big swings and these big dips? Or can pre-fight betting become something else and be another tool in our tool belt, another weapon in our arsenal? Because if we know that, you know, we're approaching a halvening cycle on crypto, and pretty soon we're going to be able to make significant money in crypto, and if we know we can live bet football pretty much every day of the week, and we know almost every weekend when we live bet the UFC on a Saturday we're going to make money, then is there a way for us to redefine and redevelop our approach to pre-fight bets in a way that really adds value to everything else that we're doing? And I really think there is. Because if you're in my live betting group for UFC, you'll know the power of compound interest. You'll know how quickly you can grow a betting account balance from stringing together consistent winners. It can be explosive, right? You can turn small amounts of money into large amounts of money very, very quickly with compound interest-based betting strategies. The problem with pre-fight betting is because it's so chaotic and because it's so fraught with risk, because it's so prone to swings, you can't really use compound interest to make money or to rapidly grow money with pre-fight betting. It's very hard to maintain a high win rate. You know, I always use the analogy that the difference between pre-fight betting and live betting UFC is literally like, you know, going into a store and buying a sweater versus buying a sweater online, right? How often, well, let's use a t-shirt as an example. How often have you bought a t-shirt online off a website and in the picture it looks great? The cut, the fit looks great, the colors look vibrant, the print looks really good quality, and then when it arrives in the post, the material is really poor quality, the print is really low quality, it's going to wash off after a few washes, and the fit isn't particularly good, and it doesn't look anything like you thought it would based on the picture. That's basically what pre-fight betting is. When we place pre-fight bets, we have no idea how a fighter is going to show up and perform. We don't know if they're injured, we don't know if they've had a bad weight cut, we don't know if they've had an argument with their coach or their wife or their kids before the fight. We don't know if they're going to execute the game plan and strategy that gives them the best chance of winning. Our money is completely at the mercy of the universe. That's pre-fight betting, right? It's like buying a t-shirt online. You hope it's going to be what you expect, but sometimes you get let down. Sometimes you order a t-shirt online, online it's even better than you expected, right? Material's much better quality, the print looks great. Sometimes you're disappointed. That's pre-fight betting. It's very uncertain what you're actually going to get. Live betting on the UFC is like going into a store and buying a t-shirt. You can pick it up, you can feel the quality of the material, you can see the quality of the print, you can try it on to see if it fits well. That's UFC live betting. You know exactly what you're getting for your money. So we know we have a big edge there. But with pre-fight betting, because there's a lot more uncertainty, it's much more fraught with risk, it's hard to maintain a very high win rate, which is why this chart looks a lot different to this chart. And so now I'm in a stage where I'm like, right, if I can live bet football every day of the week and make money on that, if we can live bet the UFC every Saturday and almost every Saturday make money on that, and if we can make crypto into this halvening cycle, post-halvening cycle, almost every day, do I really need to be mixing things up a lot in pre-fight betting and putting my money in a lot of danger? Right? Can pre-fight betting take on its own thing? And can we turn pre-fight betting into a situation where we are only betting things that we know we have a huge edge on? Because if you look at our sample size, right, almost 400 bets in the database, that's a decent amount of data to work with. If we can go back over the last 400 bets and we can clearly identify, look, this type of bet is costing us money a lot more than this other type of bet, why don't we just eliminate the bets which cause us problems and double and triple down on the ones where we know our edge is huge and our win rate is very high? And obviously that's very boring because it means we're going to be placing less bets. However, the upside of that is by doubling down and placing more of the bets we know we have a huge edge on, our win rate is going to improve, which means we can start to use compound interest to grow our money on pre-fight bets, and on top of that, we can start to take advantage of the higher max bet limits on pre-fight betting. Because right now, where there's, results are up and down, variance is up and down, you get these crazy swings, you can't go big and hard on pre-fight bets because you can't have a huge degree of confidence in any pre-fight bet. We've just used the t-shirt example, right? We're at the mercy of the universe. But if we get to a point where we're only placing the type of bets we know we have a huge edge on, we can feel a lot more confident on them, so we can start to take advantage of those big max bet limits that are available on brokerages and exchanges. So that's the kind of mindset I'm in at the moment. I am evolving pre-fight betting into something completely different that is going to add value to the whole arsenal that we've got, right? The full range of weapons, where now we've got UFC live betting, we've got crypto, and we've got football live betting. Pre-fight betting can now become something else which adds value to that, instead of in the past where it's added variance and volatility that sometimes ate into our profits on absolute cash cows such as this. So that is the mindset, or the state of mind that I'm in at the moment. And why am I talking about this? Well, I'm talking about this because in order to execute this strategy effectively, we're going to have to pass on strong positions. We're going to have to pass on seemingly good value bets, knowing that by doing that, we will achieve our goal of maintaining a high win rate and grinding out better long-term consistent profits. Because my goal right now is if we could get the win rate on pre-fight bets up to what it is on UFC live bets, which is like 65 to 70%. If we could get to that win rate, then I'll have total confidence betting big and aggressively on pre-fight bets. At the moment, I don't have that confidence. I don't have the same confidence in it as I do in football bets, as I do in UFC live bets, because of those crazy swings. But I think we can get there by being very disciplined and allowing what I would have considered in the past to be good bets, just allowing them to pass. And it's going to be difficult, right? If every one of you watching this will have known last week that I heavily leaned towards Cannonier against Marvin Vettori. What happened? Cannonier absolutely destroyed Vettori. And now this week, I kind of lean towards Josh Emmett as well. But the thing is, what is the point in doing data analysis and looking at trends if you don't take on board what the data analysis and trends is showing you, right? Ultimately, I know from looking at my results over the last 2 years, betting on fighters like Jared Cannonier, betting on fighters like Josh Emmett over the long term has only led to break even. Because over the last 2 years, whenever I've seen a guy like Cannonier, you know, in his late 30s fighting a young hungry bull, or a guy like Josh Emmett in his late 30s fighting a young hungry bull, whenever I've bet on guys like this because there's value, I've won a bet like this every now and again, but over the long term, over that 2 year period, I haven't made an overall profit. So my plan now for pre-fight bets is just to eliminate that category of bet and double and triple down on the stuff that I know I have a huge edge on, and I don't have an edge on bets like this. So the difficulty of situations like this is, like with Cannonier last weekend, we're going to have to get used to letting seemingly good opportunities go. So for example, if we heavily lean towards Jared Cannonier last week and he goes out and destroys Marvin Vettori, we can't beat ourselves up for not betting Cannonier. We can't get mad at ourselves and be like, fuck, I should have bet Cannonier. Exactly like this weekend, right? If Josh Emmett goes out there and finds a way to win against Topuria, we can't beat ourselves up over a missed opportunity, because it isn't a missed opportunity, because the data shows us that over a long period of time, bets like this are only leading us down a road of break-even obscurity. And in order to start hitting that 65 to 70% win rate that will enable us to take advantage of the big max bet limits on pre-fight bets, we're going to have to let positions like Emmett and Cannonier go and double down on the bets we know we have a huge edge on. You know, situations like Jazz Duvicius, Chase Hooper, Tainara Lisboa, Bailon Mohammed, you know, Bill Algeo, Pedro Munoz, Max Holloway. I won't go into the reasons why each of these bets were a particularly strong position. If you've been watching my breakdown videos every week, you'll know exactly why. You know exactly why. And so, yeah, it's food for thought. It's something to think about. And what it means is you're going to see me tighten up even more than I already am. Because I'm now in a position where I think there's great opportunity with pre-fight betting to get real scientific with it and only bet in positions where I know my edge is huge. And I've got the data to know where my edge is huge now. So I'm only interested in betting that shit. And I know a lot of people will find that boring, but I really don't care. At this stage in my career, all I care about is making money from betting on sports. And I think I've had a breakthrough moment with pre-fight bets where I've identified a really good way to do that. And hopefully it continues. But now, let's talk about why I lean towards Emmett and why this is a good stylistic matchup for him. Let's really go into a lot of depth here because it's a very interesting matchup. So we've already spoken about the age implications of this fight. But from a stylistic point of view, this isn't a bad fight for Josh Emmett. It's actually a pretty good stylistic matchup for him. Now, obviously with a fight like this, we've got to consider the odds. Both guys in their odds ranges are giving you a very different risk to reward ratio. Where, obviously, with Topuria being a big favourite, you have to put up a lot of money, you know, for a very small return. Whereas Emmett, his odds are very attractive, right? He's at decent underdog odds. So when I'm looking at this fight, if you ask me which fighter is more likely to win, I would say Topuria. No doubt about that. He's a young, hungry bull, big knockout power, dangerous on the feet, decent on the ground. Emmett is going to be declining big time from fight to fight. There's no doubt Topuria has a better chance of winning this. But his odds reflect that he's an absolutely massive favourite. If you ask me who is the better bet, even though I think Topuria is more likely to win, there is absolutely no doubt in my mind that Emmett is the better bet. He gives you by far the better risk to reward ratio. You'd have to be a crazy person to bet Topuria in this odds range. Knowing some of the weaknesses that he's got, which we're going to talk about, knowing how well-rounded and dangerous Josh Emmett is, you cannot bet Topuria. It's insanity to bet Topuria in this fight. So when we look at this matchup and how they match up stylistically, the reason why Emmett is the better bet in this matchup out of the two is because Topuria has a tendency to slow down. If you go back and look at any of his fights that went past round 1, you'll see that he started to look a lot flatter in round 2 of his fights. Go watch the Yusuf Zalal fight. He was very, very tired in the 3rd round. You go watch his most recent fight against Bryce Mitchell, and before he got the finish, he was also looking pretty sloppy, looking very tired. Now, a big part of the reason why Topuria slows down is because he's very aggressive. He's the kind of guy that comes out the gate sprinting, 1,000 miles an hour, swinging for the fences, throwing everything into his big power strikes, committing tons of energy to his takedowns and his grappling. So because of that, he burns through energy very, very quickly. And that is the reason why he slows. It's also the reason why he's got so many quick finishes, because he comes out the gate so hard, he just overwhelms people. But with how much energy Topuria throws into everything that he does, and with his tendency to burn himself out as a result, Topuria is one of those guys that if you can weather the early storm, you have a really good chance of doing extremely well against him. Go back and watch the 3rd round against the Yusuf Zalal fight. He was gassed, he was tired, he was sloppy. And like I say, that fight was a long time ago. He might have improved his cardio since then. It was also his UFC debut, so I don't want to be super harsh on him. But if you go and watch his most recent fight against Bryce Mitchell, take a look at that 2nd round. Moments before he got the finish, he was looking tired and sloppy. And we've got to remember, this is a 25-minute, 5-round fight against Josh Emmett. So, if he slows down around about the midway point of round 2 in a 3-rounder, obviously with a 5-rounder, he's got an extra 10 minutes to try and hang in there, which isn't going to be, easy against a guy like Josh Emmett, right? If you start to slow down midway through the 2nd round in a 3-round fight, the light's at the end of the tunnel, right? You can see the end of the fight coming, right? There's only one more round to go. One more round to push through and dog out. 5-rounder is a lot more difficult. And so, this is a really interesting fight because Topuria is one of these guys that is extremely dangerous early, but if you can hang in there, think you can cause him a lot of problems. And when you look at Topuria's past opponents, he's fought decent guys, right? Yusuf Zalal, Damon Jackson, Jay Herbert, Bryce Mitchell, they're all decent fighters, but they're not those top tier featherweights. He hasn't fought those top tier featherweights. And I think what we might see with a guy like Topuria is that against these mid-level guys, he's able to overwhelm them and get them out there early because they can't deal with his power, his speed, his athleticism, his technique. He just gets overwhelmed. But as he starts to face a higher level of a competition, these battle-hardened guys that aren't overwhelmed as easily, they're a little bit more experienced, they don't panic when under pressure, they're a little calmer, they're better at pacing themselves, maybe a bit better defensively. As he starts to face this higher level of opponent, it isn't going to be as easy to overwhelm them. A really good example of it is when Terence McKinney faced a step up in competition for the first time and fought Drew Dober. Up until that point in McKinney's career, he was used to coming out the gate 1,000 miles an hour, overwhelming everyone within 2 minutes and getting quick finishes. But when he faced that step up in competition, fought Dober, Dober was able to weather the early storm, recover when he got hurt, hang in there, drag McKinney deeper into the fight. obviously take over when McKinney started to slow. Now, Ilia Topuria is a hell of a lot better than Terence McKinney, but this is a 5-round fight, and Josh Emmett is a very well-rounded fighter who's capable everywhere, certainly capable of hanging in there with a guy like Topuria. Emmett's fought a lot of dangerous guys in the past. So this one is a very interesting fight from a betting point of view, because I do think early on Emmett will likely struggle. Topuria is an absolute buzzsaw. Fast, explosive, athletic, technically brilliant everywhere. I really like Topuria. But we know that Emmett has really good takedown defense. He's virtually impossible to take down. He does an amazing job of scrambling back up to his feet when he gets taken down. He's got fast hands. He's got good footwork. He's got good, head movement. And he's got big knockout power as well. And it's not like Topuria's chin is bulletproof. We saw Jay Herbert wobble him a couple times. And we know how dangerous Josh Emmett is on the feet. So this is an interesting fight, because there's no doubt that Emmett is going to be declining from fight to fight. There's no doubt that Father Time is going to hit him hard. It's inevitable. 38 years old, absolutely ancient for a featherweight. But stylistically, this isn't a terrible fight for him, because Topuria doesn't have the grappling to take Emmett down and hold him down. And Emmett's footwork, movement, defense, striking is pretty good. So it's not like Topuria has a huge edge there. And we know the longer the fight goes, the sloppier and more tired Topuria gets. Whereas Emmett's cardio, pretty good, right? Even in the Cater fight, which was contested at a super high pace, Emmett performed reasonably well into that 4th and 5th round. So if Emmett can make it through the early stages of this matchup, I really think he's got a great chance of winning this. Now, some things which could happen in this fight that would complicate things, or complicate my prediction on this one, or change my prediction on this one, is if Topuria were to show up with a different pacing. Because the reason why Topuria has slowed down a lot in the past is because he's come out the gate super aggressive, committed tons of energy early, and then he's faded. But Topuria doesn't necessarily have a bad gas tank, he just may have bad pacing. So if he corrects his pacing, changes his pacing, that does change my outlook on this fight quite a bit. In terms of, if Topuria starts slower and looks to pace himself across the 5 rounds instead of going so hard early, that does change this fight a lot, and then the fight becomes a lot more difficult for Emmett, because Emmett isn't really a pressure fighter. He's not going to get in your face, make Topuria work really hard. He's more likely to stand back and counter strike. If you remember a few weeks ago when I recommended a bet on Irene Aldana, the main reason why we recommended a bet on Irene Aldana is because we said, look, if you make Amanda Nunes work very, very hard early, she's going to fade, which means Aldana's then going to be able to outwork her quite easily with how great Aldana's cardio is. But Aldana made the mistake of not making Nunes work, right? She barely landed a punch in the first 2 rounds. She showed Nunes way too much respect, which meant Nunes was able to pace herself better. You could see something very similar here, where if Topuria starts slower, paces himself, doesn't exert so much early, you could see his cardio hold up a lot better than it has in fights against like Yusuf Zalal and Bryce Mitchell. It's like I say, Emmett's not the kind of guy to pressure him, make him work hard, and burn through a lot of energy. So, it's one of those fights where, from a betting point of view, it is super, 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 super interesting, and I'm looking forward to seeing how it plays out. My lean is definitely Emmett based on past performances. And the odds, like I said, I don't think Emmett is the most likely to win, but my lean from a betting point of view, no doubt Emmett gives you the better risk to reward ratio. But it's a very, very complex fight. Now, if we take a look at the over-under on this one, with how dangerous both guys are, and how aggressive both guys have looked in the past, particularly Topuria, I would be very surprised if this fight went to a decision. Obviously, the odds reflect that. Steep favourite odds, so that's a bit dead from a betting point of view. In terms of prop bets, there's a few you could consider, right? things like Emmett wins in round 3, 24.0 plus 2,300. Emmett wins in round 4, plus 3,000, plus 2,900, 30.0. Those would interest me on the basis that Topuria could hold his own for the first couple of rounds, where if he starts to slow, it increases the probability Emmett might get a finish. You could also go Emmett by knockout or TKO. We've seen Topuria get dinged in his fight against Jay Herbert. We know he's very wild. We know he's very reckless. We know Emmett has got big knockout power. But Father Time is undefeated, and the stats tell us that the older fighter loses 70% of the time when there's a 12-year age gap in a fight. So because of that, tough to be too optimistic on Emmett. A very powerful trend to be betting against, but the odds are definitely wide on this one. And yeah, if you really want to bet this fight this weekend, for me, you have to take Josh Emmett. So I hope you found that breakdown useful. Alright, now let's break down the fight between Amanda Ribas and Maycee Barber. So if we start off by taking a look at the odds on this one, we can see that Ribas is a reasonably big favourite at average odds of about 1.51, which is going to be minus 196 for an implied probability of 66%. We take a look at the odds on Barber. She is around an average of, say, 2.6, quite a big odd spread. We'll say 2.60, which is going to be plus 160 for an implied probability of 38%. So Ribas, 29 years old, 5'3" with a 66-inch reach, and Barber, 25 years old, 5'5" with a 65-inch reach. So no notable difference in age here, and we can see both of them pretty much the same size. Now, this is an interesting fight because both girls have got a lot of weaknesses. Neither of them is particularly well positioned to exploit the other's weakness, but this is one of those matchups which could be pretty competitive, could see some back and forth momentum swings, simply because both of them do have pretty major holes that almost all their opponents are going to be able to exploit. So what's interesting about this fight is that Ribas is, pretty big favourite, and when you see a fighter in this odds range, you would expect them to be, pretty well positioned to dominate their opponent. But I don't see that happening here. I definitely favour Ribas. I do think she's more likely to win. Obviously, that's reflected in the odds. But I do think Barber can make this one very interesting. The main reason being that Ribas has shown one particularly big weakness in her fights in the UFC so far, in that she doesn't react particularly well to getting hit. When she gets caught clean and hard on the feet, you can see that it starts to really affect her mentally. Her defense gets worse, she starts to make bad decisions, and you can see it just completely shoots her confidence. Obviously no one likes to get hit, but it's part of fighting. Obviously, you're going to get hit in every single fight, no matter who you are. And some fighters are better at dealing with it than others. Some are more comfortable at dealing with it than others. And Ribas is someone who you can see, if you hurt her on the feet, if you land a good shot on the feet, you can see that, it starts to break her mentally. This is a significant factor to take into consideration in this matchup, because while Amanda Ribas is the more technical striker out of the two, there's no doubt about that. She's got better footwork, better movement, she's better defensively out the two. She's got tighter technique on the feet than Maycee Barber. Where Barber can cause Ribas a problem is that Barber is one of these fighters that just bites down on her mouthpiece, comes forward, swings for the fences, and throws everything into every shot that she throws at you. Go back and watch her fight against Gillian Robertson, really good example, where she just overwhelms Robertson and breaks her with pressure and physicality. And I could see Barber doing something similar to Ribas, because when we've seen Ribas hurt on the feet in the past, she has kind of caved and fallen apart. And so if Barber comes out aggressive here, takes the fight to Ribas, gets in her face, pressures her, tries to beat her up in the clinch against the cage, I think Barber can cause Ribas a lot of problems on the feet. Because this is one of those situations where even though from a technical point of view, Ribas is the more skilled striker out of the two, Barber just has that marauding physicality where even though Ribas is more technical and could probably outpoint Barber if they were to stand in the middle of the octagon and have a sparring match or a kickboxing match, Barber's got the ability to bite down on the mouthpiece, come forward, get inside and rough Ribas up. And Ribas doesn't really have the power in her hands to, deter Barber from coming forward, and she doesn't really have the footwork or movement to avoid having to engage with Barber when Barber bum rushes forward. So this is a really interesting fight. But obviously both these girls are primarily grapplers. Both of them have a base in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. So when it comes to grappling, obviously with both these two being grapplers, you'd expect to see decent, a decent amount of grappling in this fight. If we get a lot of grappling in this fight, it definitely favours Ribas. There's no doubt that she's the better MMA grappler. And I think that's a big part of the reason why she's a favourite in this fight. Even though there are things Barber can do to have success on the ground, and even though she could cause Ribas problems on the feet, ultimately, if these two start mixing it up on the ground, it's undeniable that it favours Ribas. The reason why it favours Ribas is that even though both these girls share the same weakness in that they're both incredibly weak off their back, they're the kind of fighters that if you take either of them down, you can hold them down quite easily. That is far more of an issue for Barber than it is for Ribas, because even though both of them are very weak off their back, Barber's takedown defense is worse, which means it's more likely she'll be put on her back. And Ribas's offensive wrestling is a lot better than Macy Barber's, which means Ribas has more chance of taking Barber down than Barber has of taking Ribas down, because Ribas's takedown defense, and offensive wrestling is better than Barber's. And on top of that, another thing to take into consideration here is that Ribas's grappling control is a lot better. We saw it in her last fight against Viviane Araujo. Ribas is one of these really strange grapplers that is super weak off her back. But if she obtains a dominant position, if she gets on your back, if she gets on top of you, very difficult to shake her off. And we saw her rack up, a lot of top control against Araujo in her last fight. So with her MMA grappling, grappling control being better than Barber's, it was a lot easier to create space for yourself off your back. It's a lot easier it's a lot easier for you to create space for yourself off your back if Barber's on top of you than Ribas, who has more crushing grappling control. I would say Barber is better off her back than Ribas. Ribas is one of these frustrating fighters that kind of lies on her back and does nothing. Barber is a little more scrambly, but all the same, both girls pretty awful if they find themselves on their back. And this is ultimately why I think, Barber can, make this competitive and have some success in this fight. Because even though she for sure has bigger weaknesses that Ribas could potentially exploit, ultimately Ribas doesn't react well to getting hit on the feet. And if Barber can find a way to get Ribas down and get into top position, she is going to be able to rack up a lot of top control because of how weak Ribas is off her back, irrespective of the fact that, she's also pretty bad off her back. So it's a very, very interesting fight. It's a complex matchup. Both girls have got great cardio, so that shouldn't come into it. From a betting point of view, this one is tricky for me. Obviously, you guys know me. The majority of bets I like to place are either in the underdog odds range or the even money odds range. I need to see something really special in order to bet a fight at big favourite odds pre-fight in MMA because of how chaotic a sport MMA is. And with Ribas not reacting well to getting hit, with Ribas also being weak off her back, those are just not in order for me to bet on a fighter in this odds range, they can't have any major weaknesses that their opponent could potentially exploit. With Ribas having two big weaknesses that Barber could potentially exploit, I'm just not interested in betting Ribas at these odds. On the flip side, because Ribas is a better striker and is also a better grappler than Barber, I don't really think there's much upside in betting Barber either. If you pop her odds into an implied probability calculator, they're in that 40% implied probability odds range, which is probably exactly where they should be, because, you know, Ribas is slightly better than her everywhere. We can't get to a 50% probability of Barber winning, which is kind of what you'd need to get a decent margin over her implied probability of 40%. So I think this is one of those, one of those fights where the bookies have absolutely nailed the odds. They're dead accurate. They're exactly where they should be. For that reason, I've got no interest in betting this fight. It's a very easy pass. Now, if we consider the over-under on this one, very likely this fight goes to a decision. You can see that Ribas is an absolute decisionator. Her last 3 fights have gone the distance. Barber, similar sort of story. Her last 6 fights have gone to a decision. So very likely this one goes to a decision as well. I'm surprised the odds aren't steeper, to be fair. A lot of the time when you see 2 decisionators go up against one another in women's MMA, because we know the majority of women's MMA fights do go to a decision, compared to heavier weight classes. You often see, odds on the over down at like 1.25 minus 400, in that sort of range. Maybe 1.4 or minus 250 at the least. So I'm surprised the odds are this good. I'd expect these odds to decline as we get closer to the time of the fight. These odds are tempting, not going to lie, but 15 minutes is a long time in MMA. Barber's tough, scrappy, likes to go to war. She will force Ribas to engage. So I don't love the odds on that, even though I'm surprised the odds aren't steeper. Now, in terms of prop bets on this one, Ribas by decision is the only prop that would really interest me. But again, the odds are pretty terrible, pretty steep. Barely better than even money for a highly specific outcome such as that, which again doesn't get me excited. So this is one of those fights where top to bottom looks like the bookies have completely nailed the odds. They're exactly where they should be. Maybe a little bit of value on this, but I mean, odds like this make my dick really floppy unless I see something super special. So we could do better than this, boys. We just need to be patient, chill, and wait for those strong positions to come to us. This ain't the one. So I'm going to pass on this fight, but I hope you found that breakdown useful. Now let's break down the next fight on this card, which is going to be Austin Lane making his UFC debut against Justin Badman Tafa. I love the nickname. So if we start off by taking a look at the odds on this one, we can see that Tafa is the favourite at average odds of about 1.57, which is going to be minus 175 for an implied probability of 64%. We take a look at the odds on Lane. He's around an average of 2.45, which is going to be plus 145 for an implied probability of 41%. So Justin Tafa, 29 years old, 6 foot tall with a 74-inch reach, and Austin Lane is 35 years old, 6 foot 6 with an 80-inch reach. So straight away we can see that Austin Lane is likely to have a pretty enormous size and reach advantage here. We can see on paper he's got a 6-inch reach advantage, and he's also 6 inches taller than Tafa. So this could be one of those fights where when we see both these guys face off at the weigh-ins, the size difference between these two could be absolute comedy. Like, this could be one of those fights where these guys look 2 or 3 weight classes apart, and size matters in MMA. Obviously, the size difference will make it a lot harder for Tafa to get inside and land on Lane, and if these two do get into any grappling exchanges, Lane's size, being the bigger, more physically imposing man, could give him an edge there as well, likely will give him an edge. And so the size difference between these two does get me pretty interested in Austin Lane. From a stylistic point of view, what is interesting about this fight is that whenever we talk about Justin Tafa, we always talk about the path to beating him as being on the ground, because we know his takedown offense and ground game is extremely bad. Now, I'm not saying that Austin Lane can't exploit this weakness in Tafa's skill set, because Tafa's takedown offense and ground game is so bad that it doesn't take a particularly good grappler to give him hell. But what I can say is that Austin Lane is also pretty awful on the ground. So Lane doesn't pose as much of a threat to Tafa on the ground as some as Tafa's past opponents potentially have. You know, guys like Porter who could have grappled, or Jared Van Deer, as an example. And so, this is one of those fights where you look at it and you go, it's very difficult to bet on Justin Tafa at big favourite odds, knowing that, he's got that huge weakness on the ground. Even if Lane's not particularly well positioned to exploit it, it's one of those situations where, if you took like a blue belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, when it comes to mixed martial arts, if they're competing in the UFC, they'd probably be at a disadvantage over almost everyone, right? Because they wouldn't be a particularly decent level on the ground. However, if you took a blue belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and matched him up against just some random dude off the street, they're going to tie him up in knots and absolutely dominate him. And so, just because Austin Lane isn't very good on the ground, it doesn't mean that, him being slightly better than Tafa on the ground, coinciding with his huge size advantage, couldn't enable him to take Tafa down and absolutely dominate him, because Tafa's so bad on the ground it doesn't take a particularly good level of grappler to cause him big problems. On the feet, there's no doubt that Tafa has a pretty big advantage. Lane doesn't read his opponents particularly well. He's quite flat-footed. He's quite slow to react to his opponents. But size matters in MMA, and size is a great equalizer. Even though Tafa is much faster, much more powerful, much more technically skilled than Lane on the feet, he's going to have to cover a decent amount of distance to get inside that size and reach advantage of Lane. And so even though Tafa from a technical point of view is much better than Lane, the size difference could close the skill gap, and we're not really going to know the impact of that size difference, until we start to see him go for it on Saturday night when the fight starts. So it's a very interesting fight. For me, from a betting point of view, it's a very, very difficult fight, because when you look at the odds, there's no way that you can bet on... Where is he? Where's our guy? There's no way that you can bet on Tafa as a big favourite, because we know his ground game is terrible, and we also know that he's facing a much bigger opponent, which could really make life hard for him, both standing up and on the ground. So even though both these guys are strikers, which means this fight is most likely to take place on the feet, and there's no doubt that Tafa's the better striker out of the two, I feel Tafa's advantages are very much baked into the odds, and there's absolutely no upside. There's no benefit to betting Tafa at these odds. You're putting your money in a lot of danger. He is not a strong position. Then on the flip side, again, similar to what we said about Macy Barber, if you look at Austin Lane's odds, they carry an implied probability of about 40%. Ideally, you'd want to cap him at about 50-50 in this fight to get a decent margin in these odds. And since it's his UFC debut, since he's a striker, and this fight's likely to be a stand-up fight, and Tafa's the better striker, it's tough to get to 50-50 on this one, which means, tough to justify a bet on Austin Lane as well. And this is the thing, right? Making money in this game is often about patience. One of the biggest weapons we've got as sports bettors is choosing when and where to place our chips, and being patient, waiting for strong positions, and then firing aggressively when those strong positions come to us, like Jasmine Jazz Duvicius a couple of weeks ago as an example. That's what we need to be doing. Betting fights like this ain't the one. It's a very difficult road, trying to make money betting fighters such as this, either Tafa or Lane. Neither are the type of fighters I would want to trust with my money, and I think the odds on this one are pretty much exactly where they should be. No value on either side. So if we look at the over-under on this one, we can see that the bookies think it's very likely this one's ending inside the distance. I mean, you could kind of see why if you look at their records. You know, Austin Lane's never been to a decision. I mean, he did go to a 4th round one time, but, you know, never been to a 3rd round outside of that. If you look at Tafa's record, you know, he's been to a couple of decisions, but the vast majority of his fights have ended inside the distance as well. So, yeah, look, you know, this is one of those ones where we've got to let the odds do the work for us. Is the fight more likely to end inside the distance? Absolutely. But there's absolutely no upside in betting it at these odds. You know, the most likely outcome is absolutely baked into the odds. You know, if you're one of these guys who want to sprinkle a little bit of money on every fight to make you're watching the fight more interesting, you know, you're better off taking a gamble on fight goes to a decision at much better odds, just based on the fact that, you know, maybe Tafa struggles to get inside the size and reach of Lane, so he's a little bit more tentative, a little bit more passive than usual. And maybe Lane respects Tafa's power, so he doesn't engage as much, and maybe we get like one of those cagey heavyweight fights where both guys show each other a lot of respect, not a lot happens, and it goes a distance. Is it likely to happen? No. Someone probably gets knocked out here, but the odds reflect that. So if you're the kind of guy that likes to gamble, sprinkle a little bit of money on every fight, make watching it more entertaining, no brainer. You gotta take fight goes to decision. In terms of props, Tafa by knockout is obviously the most likely outcome, but again, you don't even get, you know, plus 100 2.0 on that, so the odds are absolutely fucking terrible on that. So yeah, there's not too many props I like on that one. Yeah, not a fan of any props. I would give them a miss. So I hope you found that useful. If you are finding these videos useful as well, if you find these breakdown videos useful, you're finding the crypto stuff useful, you find these breakdowns useful, really appreciate if you could hit the like button, subscribe if you haven't already. It would mean a lot. Helps pump these videos out to more people. And yeah, man, hope they add value to you in some way. So now let's break down the next fight, which is going to be David Onama against Gabriel Santos. So if we start off by taking a look at the odds on this one, we can see the Santos is the favourite at average odds of about 1.44, which is going to be minus 227 for an implied probability of 69%. We take a look at the odds on Onama. He is around an average of 2.85, which is going to be plus 185 for an implied probability of 35%. So Onama, 29 years old, 5'11" with a 74-inch reach, and Santos, 26 years old, 5'9" with a 71.5-inch reach. So Onama will be a little bit bigger than Santos. He'll have a bit of a reach advantage, nothing major, but we do know he's a very physically imposing fighter, very powerful fighter, very athletic fighter. So coupled with his size advantage, you know, that does give Santos you know, some physical disadvantages to try and overcome. Having said that, it's a pretty good stylistic matchup for Santos, because we know that David Onama has a huge weakness in his skill set, in that his takedown offense and ground game is very, very bad. We saw Nate Landwehr exploit this a little bit in his last fight. We saw Mason Jones do a pretty good job of exploiting this weakness as well. And Gabriel Santos, in his UFC debut against Leron Murphy, showed us that he's a pretty decent MMA grappler, good offensive wrestling, good grappling control. So this fight, pretty clear cut for me. If the fight stays standing, Onama's going to have the advantage. He's faster, more explosive, more powerful, more technical, and you know, he should outstrike Santos by a comfortable margin. There's nothing wrong with Santos' striking. You know, Santos' striking's pretty good, but he just doesn't hit as hard as Onama. He doesn't move as well. His technique isn't as good, and he doesn't throw enough volume to keep up with Onama. So on the feet, Onama's got the advantage for sure, but the problem is Onama's not going to be able to use that advantage on the feet if he's on his back or spending a lot of time defending takedowns. And based on past performances, Onama's takedown offense isn't good enough to stuff Santos's takedown attempts. So if Santos uses a grappling heavy game plan in this fight, which he probably will because he did against Leron Murphy, then he should be able to get Onama down pretty easily, rack up a decent amount of top control, win this fight relatively comfortably. The risk factor to that is obviously Onama is a young guy. He's only 29 years old, hasn't even hit his prime yet. He's going to be making big improvements from fight to fight. I don't know where he's training these days. Obviously, he was training under James Krause. He's not able to do that anymore. Obviously, fighters are not allowed to train under James Krause anymore. So a new gym with new trainers, with new coaches, maybe Onama has improved his takedown defense and ground game. And if he has, which is possible, he's a big, strong, athletic dude, then he could give Santos hell. Because if Onama is able to keep this fight standing, Santos is in a lot of trouble. But based on past performances, good stylistic matchup for Santos, and that is absolutely reflected in the odds, with him being a pretty big favourite. So another dead fight for betting this. One of those fights where you don't want to bet on Santos as a big favourite because his advantages are already baked into the odds. He could get flash KO'd by Onama, and if Onama shows up with significantly improved takedown offense, he's kind of screwed. But on the flip side, you're not putting your money in a particularly strong position if you bet Onama either, because his biggest weakness is something that his opponent is very well positioned to exploit. Onama's takedown offense and ground game is bad. Santos' offensive wrestling ground game is good. Therefore, Onama's not a particularly strong position for you to put your money. So this is one of those fights where no strong positions on either side. And the bookies have done a pretty good job, with setting the odds on this event. And the betting public haven't really moved it in a way which creates value anywhere for us, unfortunately, from what I've seen at the moment. But we'll keep researching, we'll keep working hard, we'll stay in the trenches, hopefully something pops up. So in terms of the over-under on this one, we can see that Onama, a bit of a mixed bag really, a lot of finishes, since he came into the UFC, started facing a higher level of opponent, more of his fights are going to a decision. When you look at Santos' record, tends to fight to a decision more often than not. This one almost went to a decision, which would mean that 4 of his last 5 went to a decision. Personally, I lean more towards this fight going to a decision. I know Onama is very dangerous, but my rationale is, even though Onama is very bad on the ground, he has shown a decent ability to defend himself, partly because of how tough he is. And in the fight between Santos and Leron Murphy, Santos didn't look that dangerous on the ground. It wasn't like he had a dangerous submission game. It wasn't like he inflicted loads of damage with his ground and pound. He tended to favour grappling control. So if we think the most likely outcome here is that Santos is going to be able to use a grappling heavy game plan to take Onama down and control him, we then ask ourselves the question, well, how likely is it in that scenario that the fight ends inside the distance? And it's probably not that likely, because Onama's good at defending himself on the ground. Santos isn't that dangerous on the ground, which increases the probability of this fight going to a decision. So I don't have a super strong feeling on the over-under on this one, but through process of elimination, gun to my head, if you forced me to pick a bet out of these two with a better risk to reward ratio, for me undoubtedly it would be fight goes to a decision, purely based on the fact that the odds are slightly better, and I think a grappling heavy game plan from Santos increases the probability of this fight going the full 15 minutes. Probably not going to be betting it myself. It doesn't jump out at me as being a strong position, but the risk to reward ratios are terrible. Now, in terms of prop bets on this one, Santos by decision is the only one I would really be interested in. The odds aren't great though. They're pretty short at 3.30 plus 230. For a highly specific outcome like that, where there are a lot of ways that it could go. I'm not saying Santos can't submit Onama on the ground. He could. Onama's not great on the ground. Onama's dangerous on the feet. Maybe he knocks Santos out. It's one of those things where I would want better odds than this. But again, if you're one of these guys who wants to sprinkle a little bit of money on every fight to make watching the fights more interesting, Santos by decision, probably your best prop. But the odds are dead as fuck. Not a particularly good risk to reward ratio there. So I hope you found that breakdown useful. Now let's break down the fight between Brendan Allen and Bruno Silva. Do we have a little look at what Medic is doing? Medic. Beautiful. Okay, so Brendan Allen against Bruno Silva. So if we start off by taking a look at the odds on this one, we can see that Allen is the favourite at average odds of about 1.53, which is minus 189 for an implied probability of 65%. If we take a look at the odds on his opponent, Mr. Bruno Silva, we can see that he is an average of around 2.55, which is going to be plus 155 for an implied probability of 39%. So Brendan Allen, 29 years old, 6'2" with a 75-inch reach. Bruno Silva, 33 years old, 6 foot tall with a 74-inch reach. So no notable X factors. Both guys roughly the same size. Nothing major in terms of age. This is a very clear-cut fight from a betting point of view. Very, very simple to break this one down. Bruno Silva has a massive deal-breaking weakness in his skill set, in that his takedown offense is absolutely non-existent, and if you put him on his back, he's very, very weak off his back. He just lays on his back and does absolutely nothing. So while Brendan Allen isn't a particularly strong wrestler, this is one of those fights where he doesn't need to be because of how bad Silva is on the ground. Almost anyone in the division with any level of MMA grappling is going to be able to give Silva absolute hell unless he improves this giant weakness in his skill set. And he's 33 years old. You know, he's had over 30 pro fights. If he hasn't corrected this weakness in his skill set at this point in his career, you know, he'd probably never go into. So while Brendan Allen doesn't usually use grappling heavy game plans, we saw in his last fight against Andre Manoiz, you know, where he took him down a couple times. You know, even though Allen does like to stand and bang, a lot of Allen's fights do involve grappling as well. He does like to mix it up and shoot a takedown here and there once or twice a fight. And, you know, that's going to give him a huge edge in this matchup because he's levels and levels and levels above Silva on the ground. So if the fight stays standing, I think it's going to be competitive. Allen's got a better kicking game. His footwork's better. His movement's better. He throws a higher volume of strikes than Silva. However, Silva hits like a truck. He's one of these guys with big abnormal power. He's got devastating knockout power in every punch. Allen isn't the best defensively. So Silva is the better boxer. Allen's the better all-round MMA striker. But with how much damage Silva can inflict when he lands, I think the stand-up exchanges between these two are going to be relatively competitive. I don't see a huge edge here. This is basically power versus volume. And Silva can negate a lot of Allen's volume with his devastating power. However, Allen has a gigantic advantage on the ground. At some point in this fight, you'd expect him to grapple. When he does, he should have a lot of success. Now, Allen's biggest weakness in his skill set is that he does have bad fight IQ. He is the kind of guy that's tough to trust with your money. Definitely not the kind of guy you'd want to go all in on. His game planning is bad. His fight IQ, his strategy, pretty bad. And he is the kind of guy that quite often doesn't execute game plans that gives him the best chance of winning. In terms of if we have identified that using a grappling heavy game plan is an easy path to victory for Allen this weekend, Brendan Allen is the exact kind of fighter that will choose to try and win a kickboxing match instead and will not bother grappling. And for that reason, it is very difficult to go all in on this guy or trust this guy because he often does not fight smart. So when you look at the odds, Allen is not the kind of guy that I would want to be betting in this odds range. You know, fight IQ, game planning and strategy are the most important attributes in a fighter. You know, quite often it is not the most skilled fighter who wins an MMA contest. It is the fighter that has the better game plan, strategy, fight IQ. You know, ultimately, you know, if making money from betting on MMA was all about identifying who is the more skilled fighter, then we'd all be rich and I'd be a millionaire, because it's very, very easy to look at footage of two guys and see who is the more skilled fighter. But so much more goes into, you know, deciding the outcome of an MMA fight than that. And Allen is particularly weak in the game planning, fight IQ, strategy aspect of the sport, which is absolutely critical. And so he's extremely difficult to trust in this odds range. In order for me to bet a fighter in this odds range, they need to have no major weaknesses, and that just isn't the case with Allen with his poor decision making. Because if he does come in this weekend, stubborn, looking for a bonus check, trying to knock Silva out, trying to win a kickboxing match, which fighters like Allen, quite often do, that significantly changes, how I would view this fight. Because in a stand-up fight, this matchup is very close to 50-50. With maybe Allen's volume comes out on top, maybe Silva's power is the difference. The only reason why Allen should be this big of a favourite is because of his edge on the ground, and we can't trust him to use it. So there's no way I can bet Allen at these odds. On the flip side, not interested in Bruno Silva either, simply because we know that he's absolutely awful on the ground. So if Allen does come in with a grappling heavy game plan, which he should if he's got a brain, Silva's going to get absolutely dominated. So yeah, this is one of those fights where, again, bookies have done a brilliant job of capping it. The betting public haven't moved the odds in a way which gives us value on either guy. It's an easy pass. Easy pass. We can find stronger positions for us to put our money than that. So, in terms of the over-under on this one, the over 1.5 rounds does interest me, just because both guys are tough as fuck. They're both very aggressive. They're both very dangerous. They love to go to war, but it's difficult to get both of them out of there. Both are tough. Both have got good cardio. Both are reasonably well-rounded. Even though Silva's awful on the ground, still pretty good at defending himself on the ground. And, Allen, Silva, tough as nails on the feet as well. We saw Bruno Silva go the distance with Pereira, ate some big shots, took a lot of damage, managed to hang in there. We've seen Brendan Allen in some wars, took big shots against heavy hitters like Punahil Soriano, able to hang in there. So yeah, over 1.5 rounds is interesting to me in this fight, and I'll most likely be betting that. In terms of the prop bets on this one, in terms of the prop bets, Allen by decision is interesting to me. I'm not the biggest fan of props. You guys know I very rarely bet props. I can't remember the last time I bet a prop. However, if you're the kind of guy that likes to bet props, wants to sprinkle a little bit of money on every fight to make watching the fights more interesting, Allen by decision, probably your best prop here. And I'm surprised the odds are this generous. When you consider that, fighters such as Santos to win money line is steeper odds, but Ribas to win money line is steeper odds. Yet the odds on Ribas to win by decision are far worse than the odds on Allen to win by decision, and the same goes for Santos to win by decision. I would have assumed Allen to win by decision would have been in this odds range, with his money line odds being similar odds range to Santos. There might be a bit of value in there. I don't care. I'm not going to bet props myself. I'm just not into the low liquidity stuff. But yeah, I'm surprised the odds are I'm not going to say generous, but I'm surprised that the odds on Allen to win by decision aren't steeper than this. So anyway, hope you found that breakdown useful. Hope you do great this weekend. Hope you make loads of money. Enjoy the fights, and hit the like button if you haven't already. It would help me out a lot. Subscribe if you haven't already. Take care, everyone. Love you all. I'll see you all in next week's video. Nice one, guys. Bye.